Waking up at 4 a.m. is not just an action, it is a declaration that you refuse to live an ordinary life. It is a statement to yourself that comfort is no longer your master and purpose is. When you rise in that hour, you are fighting every voice that told you you're too tired, too weak, too late, too discouraged, too busy, or too ordinary to live intentionally. At 4 a.m., the bed feels heavier, the pillow feels softer, and the room feels colder because destiny is testing whether you truly want what you keep praying for. Many people beg for change, cry for change, and talk about change, but the ones who wake at 4 a.m. prove that they are willing to build change. Discipline is the bridge between prayer and manifestation, and the early morning is the furnace where that discipline is forged. This hour tests your priorities. It asks you whether you prefer sleep or strength, comfort or calling, routine or revelation. When you choose to rise, you choose transformation. When you discipline your mornings, you retrain your mind. Your thought patterns begin to shift. Instead of waking late and reacting to life, you wake early and command life. The mind becomes sharper because it is engaging without noise. You think deeper because distractions haven't arrived yet. Ideas become clearer because your soul is still. You begin to see solutions where you once saw problems. You start hearing inner clarity instead of confusion. The 4 a.m. hour forces you to face yourself honestly. There is no television, no crowd, no entertainment, no traffic, no noise to hide behind. It is just you, your thoughts, and the truth about who you are becoming. In that honesty, growth begins. Greatness is not born in public moments, it is born in private disciplines. And nothing reveals your seriousness like what you are willing to do when nobody is watching. This hour also trains your body. Your flesh will resist. Your muscles will complain. Your eyes will feel heavy. But every day you conquer the urge to stay in bed, you are teaching your body that it does not control your destiny. You are mastering your appetite for comfort. You are breaking dependency on ease. You are becoming stronger, tougher, more resilient. Success does not belong to the emotionally weak or physically undisciplined. It belongs to those who have learned to force their bodies to serve their assignments. And something powerful happens when your body learns obedience, your confidence increases. You start to trust yourself. You start believing your own promises. You stop being someone who only plans and you become someone who performs. Many lives never change not because God refused to bless them, because they never gained mastery over themselves. At 4 a.m. your spirit becomes sensitive. You enter a moment when distractions are asleep and the noise of the world is muted. This is when inner strength grows. This is when prayer becomes deeper. This is when scripture sounds louder inside your soul. This is when guidance comes without struggle because you are finally quiet enough to hear. There are instructions that do not come in busy hours. There is wisdom that is not revealed in crowded environments. There is healing that only flows when the heart is still. Many people complain that they cannot feel spiritual strength, but they never create the environment for it to develop. When you wake early, you create space for divine dialogue. You give God the first attention. You give purpose the first energy. You give destiny the first priority. And what you put first always grows strongest in your life. Waking at 4 a.m. also changes how you approach your day. Instead of waking up in stress, rushing, running, panicking, and reacting, you start your day in control. You gain time others waste. You prepare when others are unaware. You build momentum before others even begin. By the time the world wakes up, you are already mentally ahead. You are spiritually centered, emotionally calm, physically active, and mentally alert. That advantage compounds over time. One disciplined morning will not change your life, but a lifestyle of disciplined mornings reshapes your existence. Habits slowly shape identity, and identity shapes destiny. People do not fail because of one wrong moment. They fail because of repeatedly undisciplined moments. When you master your mornings, you begin reversing that loss and rewriting the pattern of your life. There is also a psychological transformation. You start realizing that you are capable of more than you believed. The fear that once controlled you begins to weaken. The doubts that once paralyzed you begin to lose influence. You stop seeing yourself as average because you are no longer behaving like average people. Most people are controlled by feelings. If they feel tired, they stop. If they feel discouraged, they quit. If they feel lazy, they indulge it. But waking at 4 a.m. creates a new mindset. You stop asking how you feel and you start asking what you are committed to. You stop waiting for motivation and you start operating in responsibility. Your emotions stop dictating your actions and your decisions start commanding your emotions. That is when maturity is born. That is when growth becomes inevitable. In this hour, you also learn consistency. Discipline is measured not by what you do once, but by what you can do repeatedly. The power of waking at 4 a.m. is not in the drama of the first morning. It is in the quiet strength of the 10th, 20th, and 100th morning. Every day you show up, you are reinforcing identity. You are reinforcing standards. You are reinforcing commitment. You are preaching a sermon to yourself without speaking a word. I will not sabotage my purpose. I will not surrender to comfort. I will not live small. Eventually, that message becomes permanent inside you. Eventually, people begin to see the change. Eventually, opportunities begin to respond. Not because the clock is magical, but because discipline is powerful and alignment is transformative. This hour separates those who wish from those who build, those who admire greatness from those who pursue it, those who talk about destiny from those who prepare for it, and those who want breakthrough from those who position themselves for it. The early hour increases clarity, mental strength, and divine awareness because it removes the fog that life places over the heart and mind. When a person wakes before the world begins to shout, they begin to hear the quiet voice of purpose speaking within them, and that voice becomes stronger day by day. At that sacred time, there is no competition for attention, no argument of opinions, no flood of distractions that drown intention, so the thoughts begin to align and the mind begins to breathe. Clarity is not accidentally discovered. It is intentionally created by discipline, sacrifice, and focus. And waking in the early hour is one of the most powerful ways to create that environment. When you rise in silence, you give your spirit permission to listen. And what you listen to in those moments will shape how you live the rest of the day. In the stillness of the morning, your heart is more honest than at any other time. During the day, you are surrounded by expectations, demands, pressures, and responsibilities, and your soul learns to hide behind activity. But at the early hour, there is nowhere to hide from yourself. You face your fears, your doubts, your hopes, your weaknesses, and your dreams with sincerity. That honest confrontation is the beginning of mental strength. Real strength is not hiding your struggles. It is confronting them with courage. The early morning trains that courage, because every time you choose to rise instead of roll over, you practice victory over yourself. And victory over self is the foundation of victory over circumstances. When the mind learns discipline in the quiet, it stands firm in the storm. Divine awareness also becomes clearer in those moments, because your spirit is not wrestling with noise. Many people say they cannot feel God's presence or guidance, but they rarely quiet their world long enough to hear. The early hour is like a doorway where heaven feels nearer and the heart feels more open. Prayer becomes deeper because the mind is not rushing. Reflection becomes richer because there is space to think. Gratitude becomes real because you can recognize the gift of breath, the gift of life, the gift of another chance before stress steals your joy. In that sacred awareness, you begin to sense direction, correction, encouragement, and strength. You realize that you are not abandoned in life, that you are guided, loved, and strengthened, and that realization changes the way you walk into the day. The early hour sharpens focus. When you consistently dedicate that time to intentional thinking, reading, praying, planning, and reflecting, you train your brain to engage deeply. The world today is filled with shallow attention. People scroll, jump, rush, and react all day long, and their minds become restless and weak. But the disciplined early riser learns concentration. They learn to sit with an idea long enough to understand it. They learn to sit with truth long enough to be transformed by it. They learn to sit with pain long enough to heal from it. That capacity to focus becomes a massive advantage in every area of life. Work becomes more effective. Decisions become wiser. Emotions become calmer. The person who can control their attention controls their direction. As mental strength grows, so does resilience. Rising early demands persistence. There will be days of fatigue, days of discouragement, days when quitting sounds comfortable and discipline feels heavy. But each time you push through, you are engraving perseverance into your character. Over time, that perseverance shows up in relationships, in responsibilities, in calling, and in dreams. You stop quitting easily. You stop breaking under pressure. You stop surrendering to temporary feelings. You become steady, anchored, and dependable. People may wonder how you stay strong, but your strength was built in quiet mornings when no one was watching. Another powerful transformation that happens in the early hour is renewal of perspective. When you wake into stillness instead of chaos, you start the day from a place of order instead of confusion. You remind yourself of what truly matters before the world tries to define it for you. You realign your values, your priorities, and your intentions. You refuse to let random events write your story because you already chose your direction before the day began. That perspective keeps you from being controlled by fear, by comparison, by insecurity, and by the opinions of others. Instead of reacting emotionally, you respond thoughtfully because your spirit has already been grounded. This hour deepens gratitude. When the world is quiet, you notice things you normally ignore. You feel the weight of mercy, the blessing of existence, the gift of possibility. Gratitude strengthens the heart because it shifts attention from what is missing to what has been given. A grateful heart is stronger, healthier, and more courageous than a complaining one. The early hour becomes a training ground for gratitude, and gratitude becomes fuel for strength. Through this rhythm of early discipline, something else awakens, purpose becomes clearer. You begin to recognize patterns in your life, lessons in your experiences, and direction in your desires. You realize that you were not created to drift, but to live intentionally, and the clarity gained in those mornings gives courage to take steps you once feared to take. You start planning instead of guessing. You start building instead of wishing. You start moving with intention instead of wandering in confusion. That is why the early hour is not simply a routine, it is a foundation for destiny. The early hour also heals the mind from the constant rush that damages peace. Modern life moves fast, and many lose themselves in deadlines, obligations, and endless noise. Rising early creates a sanctuary where the soul can breathe and reorganize itself. You learn to slow your thinking, calm your breathing, and reconnect to the deeper part of yourself that is often buried under stress. As that calmness becomes part of your routine, anxiety begins to lose authority over you. Fear does not disappear instantly, but you learn to rule it instead of letting it rule you, because you start your day from strength rather than panic. In those quiet moments, your creativity awakens. New ideas, insights, and inspirations often come when the mind is rested and quieted. Many of the world's most impactful thinkers, leaders, and builders nurtured their creativity in early hours because creativity grows best in stillness. The morning becomes a workshop of imagination where dreams can be shaped into strategies. What once looked impossible begins to look achievable because your mind is clear enough to see possibilities instead of obstacles. The early hour strengthens emotional discipline. When you conquer the urge to sleep, you also conquer the habit of emotional weakness. You stop allowing feelings to dictate your actions. Instead, you let purpose dictate your choices and let your choices reshape your emotions. This emotional discipline helps you handle conflict better, handle disappointment maturely, handle criticism wisely, and handle success humbly. Emotional maturity is one of the greatest forms of strength, and the early discipline helps shape it. Consistency in the early hour also builds trust within yourself. Many people do not trust their own commitments because they have broken too many promises to themselves. But when you repeatedly choose discipline over comfort, you rebuild that trust. You start believing your own words again. You start respecting your own standards again. That inner trust produces confidence, and confidence produces execution. You move differently when you trust yourself. You speak differently, dream differently, and live differently. Another blessing of the early hour is awareness of purpose beyond selfish ambition. When you quiet your world and align your heart, you begin to see life as a calling, not just survival. You realize your actions affect others. Your growth serves others, and your strength inspires others. This awareness produces responsibility. You begin to handle your life with seriousness because you understand your impact. That sense of divine awareness humbles you and empowers you at the same time. The early hour also becomes a place of healing. Old wounds, emotional scars, hidden pain, and silent struggles often resurface when the world is quiet. But instead of running from them, you meet them with strength and faith. Little by little, forgiveness grows, peace returns, and the heart becomes lighter. Healing is rarely loud. It is usually quiet, gentle, and progressive. And the early morning creates space for that process to unfold. As days, weeks, and months of early discipline pass, transformation becomes visible. The way you think changes, the way you speak changes, the way you react changes, the way you plan changes. People notice stability in you. They sense depth, clarity, and strength. What they see on the outside was shaped in the unseen hours of the morning. Your identity shifts from scattered to focused, from confused to guided, from weak to strengthened. The early hour is also an arena of preparation. Life will always bring challenges, but preparation strengthens you to face them. When you start your day with clarity and divine awareness, you are not surprised by adversity, you are equipped for it. You respond with wisdom, patience, and resilience instead of panic and despair. Preparation does not remove battles, but it helps you win them. This discipline also teaches stewardship of time. Time is one of the greatest resources of life, and many waste it unknowingly. Rising early extends your capacity. You gain precious hours of productivity, reflection, study, prayer, planning, growth, and development. Over time, these extra hours accumulate into extraordinary results. While others wonder why your life is advancing, the secret is hidden in the disciplined use of time. Another transformation that occurs is alignment between values and actions. Many people say they value growth, faith, excellence, and purpose, yet their daily habits do not support those values. But waking early forces integrity between belief and behavior. Your choices begin to match your priorities. You no longer live in contradiction. That alignment produces peace because there is no inner conflict between what you say you want and what you actually do. Through the consistency of early rising, your vision expands. As the mind becomes clearer and the heart becomes steadier, you begin to dream bigger. You start recognizing greater possibilities. Limiting beliefs fade because discipline has proven that change is possible. You become willing to take steps of faith, to build, to create, to pursue, to transform, because your spirit has learned strength in silence. Finally, the early hour teaches surrender and dependence. It reminds you that strength is not only human effort, but divine empowerment. In those quiet moments, you learn humility, acknowledging your need for wisdom, guidance, and grace. That humility protects you from pride, and that dependence gives you courage because you know you are not walking alone. All of these gifts come from a simple but powerful decision to rise early, to quiet the world, to discipline the body, to focus the mind, and to awaken the spirit. And through that decision, clarity grows, mental strength solidifies, and divine awareness becomes a living reality within you. The journey of rising early is not always glamorous, but it is deeply transformative. There will be mornings when the bed will argue, when your body will beg for more sleep, when your emotions will question the purpose. But every time you win that argument, you rewrite the story of who you are becoming. You stop being the person who is controlled by impulses, and you become the person who is directed by intention. And intention is powerful because it shapes outcomes long before actions are seen. In the early hour, intention is strengthened, sharpened, and purified. You examine your motives, refine your goals, and realign your direction with truth instead of ego. That inner alignment gives your life stability. The early hour also develops discipline in every other area. When you train yourself to do the difficult thing in the morning, you become stronger in doing the difficult things throughout the day. You manage responsibilities better, handle commitments more faithfully, and resist temptation more effectively. Discipline is contagious. Once it grows in one area, it spreads into others. Soon you notice improvements in health, in work, in relationships, in thinking, and in habits, all because you chose to master your mornings. A powerful psychological benefit of rising early is identity transformation. You begin to see yourself differently. Instead of identifying with weakness, you begin to identify with strength. Instead of believing you are inconsistent, you begin to believe you are capable and dependable. Identity shapes destiny because people behave according to who they believe they are. When the early hour reshapes identity, it indirectly reshapes behavior, performance, and destiny. The early morning also nurtures wisdom. As you reflect, read, pray, think, journal, and evaluate your life, you accumulate lessons that many never take time to gather. Wisdom is not only given, it is cultivated through reflection. Those quiet minutes become a classroom where life, experience, scripture, and conscience teach you. Over time, you become more thoughtful, more discerning, and more insightful. You avoid mistakes others repeat because you live with awareness instead of autopilot. This hour strengthens patience. Growth is rarely instant, and many people give up because they do not see immediate results. But the discipline of rising early trains long-term commitment. You learn to value process, to honor small steps, and to trust gradual progress. That patience extends into every area of life. You become more stable in relationships, more steady in growth, and more faithful in responsibilities. Rising early also deepens self-control. The ability to delay gratification is one of the greatest predictors of success and stability. When you choose discipline over sleep, you practice delaying gratification daily. That practiced self-control empowers you to make wiser financial choices, healthier lifestyle choices, stronger moral choices, and more focused life decisions. Another transformation is inner peace. The early hour detoxes the mind from chaos. You breathe, you think, you center yourself, you receive strength, and you enter the day with calm confidence instead of restless anxiety. Peace is power because it gives clarity under pressure and stability under stress. In the early hour, you also cultivate hope. As you dream, plan, and pray, you begin to see a future that is brighter than your past. Hope energizes, hope strengthens, hope sustains. The early morning feeds that hope continuously. Day by day, habit by habit, prayer by prayer, reflection by reflection. The early hour becomes a furnace of transformation. It shapes character, sharpens mind, strengthens spirit, and aligns life with purpose. And through this sacred discipline, clarity increases, mental strength rises, and divine awareness guides every step forward. The beauty of this practice is that it does not discriminate. Anyone willing to honor the early hour can experience its rewards. It does not require special background, special resources, or extraordinary talent. It requires willingness, humility, and commitment. It invites the busy person, the discouraged person, the dreamer, the struggling believer, the ambitious heart, and the weary soul to step into a rhythm that heals, strengthens, and directs. The early hour becomes a companion, a mentor, and a mirror, revealing who you are and who you can become. As you continue in this rhythm, you begin to notice subtle yet powerful shifts. Conversations feel clearer because your mind is centered. Decisions feel lighter because your spirit is guided. Work feels purposeful because your heart is aligned. Even challenges feel different because you face them from a grounded place. This does not remove hardship, but it equips you to rise above it with wisdom and courage. Every morning becomes a reminder that you are not powerless, that you can shape your day before it shapes you. Over time, this discipline becomes a lifestyle rather than a struggle. What once felt difficult begins to feel natural because identity has changed. You no longer see the early hour as punishment, but as privilege, as an appointment with growth, clarity, and divine presence. It becomes something you value deeply because you have witnessed its impact on your life, your thinking, your emotions, and your destiny. In this sacred habit, you discover that clarity is not distant, strength is not unreachable, and divine awareness is not reserved for a select few. They are cultivated through attention, discipline, and devotion. Each early morning is like planting a seed. Some days the growth is obvious, some days it feels subtle, but every day something within you is developing. Faith becomes steadier, thinking becomes sharper, identity becomes stronger, and life becomes more aligned with purpose. Those who give themselves to this discipline eventually look back and see how far they have come, how their hearts matured, how their minds expanded, and how their relationship with God deepened. And they realized that the journey of rising early did more than change their schedule. It changed their inner world and empowered them to live with clarity, with strength, and with unwavering awareness of divine guidance. This is why the early hour becomes a gift that keeps shaping character long after the first alarm clock rings, because every disciplined morning is a message to your future that you are serious about growth, and every quiet moment of reflection is an investment into wisdom, peace, and purposeful living, and every breath taken in stillness is strength gathered for the battles of the day, and every whisper of prayer is fuel for courage, direction, and unwavering faith. And in this beautiful rhythm of silence, focus, and surrender, the soul learns to rise, the mind learns to see clearly, and the spirit learns to walk confidently in guidance, assurance, and unshakable hope. So the early morning remains a holy invitation to become stronger, wiser, calmer, clearer, braver, more disciplined, more aware, and more deeply connected to purpose every single day, until the discipline within you shapes a life of greatness and faithful purpose for all. Rising early breaks laziness, excuses, and emotional weakness, because it disciplines the human spirit to take control instead of surrendering to comfort. When you rise before the world wakes, you announce that your life is not governed by sleep, mood, or feelings, but by purpose, assignment, and divine alignment. This is where strength is born, not in loud declarations, but in quiet discipline, not in public moments, but in hidden obedience. When you force your body to obey your spirit, you reclaim authority over your life. Laziness thrives when comfort is permitted to lead, but when discipline becomes your master, laziness loses its throne. Many people pray for greatness, but greatness lives in habits, not only desires. Rising early is one of those habits heaven respects because it positions you above distraction and positions you in clarity. It trains you to respond to purpose instead of reacting to pressure. It teaches you not to wait for the day to push you, but to step into the day as a leader of it. When you continually stay in bed when you should be awake, you silently tell yourself that your comfort is more valuable than your calling. Over time, this weakens the soul. But when you choose to rise, even when your body resists, you send a new message to your mind that assignment matters, that destiny matters, that responsibility matters. Every morning becomes a classroom where discipline educates your character. That is why laziness cannot survive where discipline is practiced. Laziness is not merely sleepiness. Laziness is disinterest in purpose, negligence toward time, and rebellion against responsibility. When you continuously rise early, you break this rebellion. You humbly submit your life back into order. You bring your scattered thoughts under authority. You begin to respect your own future enough to prepare for it. Excuses also die in the presence of discipline. Excuses are clever justifications that protect weakness. They tell you why it is okay not to try, not to change, not to grow, and not to rise. Excuses will give you comfort but steal your future. They will soothe you for a moment but weaken you for years. Rising early exposes excuses because discipline shines light on what you used to hide behind. You suddenly see that most of the things you said you couldn't do were actually things you wouldn't do. You realized time was not your enemy, wasted time was. You realized opportunity was never absent, your readiness was. Waking before distractions teaches you that you always had more ability than you admitted. You were simply unwilling to challenge your comfort. The more you rise early, the more foolish your excuses begin to sound, because results silence excuses. When you begin to produce, excuses lose their argument. Emotional weakness is another chain that breaks when you rise early. Emotional weakness is when feelings become lord over your decisions. It is when fear stops you, when insecurity controls you, when discouragement dictates your effort. But rising early teaches your emotions they are not dictators. They are simply signals that must submit to truth. When emotions rule a person, they remain unstable, easily offended, easily discouraged, easily distracted, and easily defeated. But when they learn to wake before their emotions decide for them, they begin to lead their feelings instead of being led by them. There is something powerful about meeting God, peace, prayer, reflection, or intentional silence before engaging the world. It stabilizes the heart. It strengthens the mind. It calms anxiety. It gives structure to chaos. You do not carry emotional storms into the day because you anchored your soul before the day demanded anything from you. Rising early builds responsibility. Responsibility is proof that you honor what God gave you. Irresponsibility is proof that you treat your life casually. Many doors remain closed not because God refused to open them, but because many are not yet responsible enough to handle them. Rising early is training. It is training to show up when no one is clapping. It is training to be consistent without applause. It is training to be accountable when nobody is watching. Responsibility is not measured by what you promise, but by what you consistently do. The person who rises early is rehearsing reliability every single morning. Heaven trusts disciplined people because discipline protects blessings. Blessings without discipline become burdens. Opportunities without discipline become disasters. Rising early forms the kind of structure capable of hosting greatness. It also shapes mindset. Mindset is the battlefield where destiny is won or lost. A weak mindset makes strong gifts useless. A fearful mindset makes great opportunities irrelevant. But a disciplined mindset makes even small opportunities powerful. Rising early shapes how you think about yourself and your life. You start to see yourself as someone capable, someone strong, someone focused, someone reliable, someone intentional. Your language changes from I can't to I will, from maybe one day to I am working now, from life is hard to I am built by God to handle life. Confidence is not formed by merely believing positive statements. Confidence forms when your behavior consistently agrees with your identity. Rising early makes your actions agree with your calling. This gives you dignity. It gives you quiet pride. It gives you a sense that your life is not random but directed. Slowly, progress begins to appear. Not instantly, but gradually, like a sunrise. You start understanding things clearer, making decisions wiser, planning better, thinking deeper, and achieving more. Suddenly, what used to overwhelm you becomes manageable. What used to scare you becomes conquerable. What used to delay you becomes doable. And this growth does not happen because time magically improved. It happens because you improved. Early mornings become the place where new versions of you are formed. You do not wake up only to start a day. You wake up to shape yourself. Each morning chisels you. Each morning sharpens you. Each morning strengthens you. By choosing discipline repeatedly, you build internal muscles no one can see at first, but eventually everyone will experience. Rising early also organizes life. Many live in chaos not because their lives are complicated, but because their minds are ungoverned. When you start the day late, rushed, unprepared, and anxious, the entire day inherits that energy. But rising early allows stillness. It allows thought. It allows planning. It allows you to place things in order instead of spending the entire day reacting. Order produces peace. Peace produces clarity. Clarity produces effectiveness. Effectiveness produces results. This is why disciplined people accomplish more in shorter time than distracted people do in long time. Discipline multiplies time. It is not about how many hours you have, but how you honor them. Early rising trains you to honor time. You no longer treat hours carelessly because you understand that life is measured in hours and destiny is fulfilled through how those hours are used. This discipline touches relationships too. A lazy person becomes a weight in relationships. An undisciplined person drains others. But a responsible, emotionally grounded, mentally focused person becomes a blessing. People begin to trust you. They believe your words. They rely on your presence. You become a pillar instead of a burden. Rising early strengthens the type of person you bring into every relationship. You carry stability into your family, your friendships, your partnerships, your ministry, and your work. Instead of always needing strength, you start supplying strength. Instead of always needing encouragement, you start giving encouragement. Instead of always depending on others to lead you, you start leading yourself. There will still be mornings when you feel weak, tired, discouraged, or unmotivated, but those mornings are not proof that discipline failed. They are proof that discipline is needed. Growth never happens without resistance. Muscles don't grow without weight. Character doesn't grow without challenge. So when your body resists, when your mind complains, when your emotions protest, it is simply a sign that transformation is happening. You are breaking old patterns. You are rewriting old stories. You are defeating old limitations. Every time you rise when it is easier to sleep, you win a private victory. And private victories always lead to public victories. What you conquer in silence eventually manifests in success, strength, and stability that others will see. In time, you begin to realize that waking early was not just about time, it was about identity. It was about who you are becoming. You are becoming someone disciplined, someone trustworthy, someone structured, someone spiritually grounded, someone mentally strong, someone emotionally stable, someone who does not hide behind excuses, someone who does not negotiate with laziness, someone who respects purpose, someone who understands that life is a gift and must be stewarded well. You begin to live with intentionality instead of accident, with purpose instead of randomness, with clarity instead of confusion, with confidence instead of insecurity, with strength instead of fragility. And you can trace the transformation back to the decision to rise, to discipline your mornings, to command your day, to take responsibility, to choose growth, and to refuse to live another day as a prisoner to laziness, excuses, and emotional weakness, but instead to live as someone trained for responsibility and dominion, rising early, shaping mind and spirit, building strength in silence, and stepping into each day with authority, clarity, faith, discipline, an unwavering focus, knowing that greatness is not an event, but a life shaped daily through choices like these that separate the distracted from the determined, the weak from the prepared, the drifting from the destined, the wandering from the purposeful, the sleeping from the rising, the defeated from the disciplined. And as you continue this journey, you notice that the person you are becoming is stronger than the life you once settled for, wiser than the excuses you once believed, and more powerful than the emotions that once controlled you, because rising early has been rewriting your life from the inside out and building a version of you that lives with responsibility, dominion, discipline, an unshakable inner strength that continues to grow every single morning without needing applause, without needing attention, simply fueled by purpose, guided by faith, strengthened by discipline, and anchored in the deep conviction that laziness will no longer rule your life, excuses will no longer define your choices, emotional weakness will no longer sabotage your progress, because you are learning to lead yourself, to govern your mind, to master your emotions, to honor your time, to respect your calling, and to rise every day as someone ready for growth, ready for responsibility, ready for dominion, ready to live with intention, excellence, an unwavering commitment to becoming everything God has placed inside you without settling for less, without returning to old patterns, and without surrendering to comfort again, continually rising, continually strengthening, continually learning, continually overcoming, continually building, continually disciplining, continually advancing, continually stepping forward into a stronger, wiser, more responsible, more focused, more disciplined version of yourself every single morning, knowing that this journey is shaping your destiny and rewriting the story of your life through the simple yet powerful decision to rise early and watch what happens to you as responsibility. Discipline and dominion reshape your mind, your emotions, your habits, your future, and your entire life until the person you used to be is completely replaced by the person discipline has been forming all along without noise, without boasting, simply through faithful, consistent, intentional rising and choosing growth over comfort again and again and again without stopping and without turning back. When a person decides to shift their life, heaven takes notice. Because change is not an accident, it is a decision of the Spirit. And when the Spirit rises, everything connected to your destiny begins to respond. There is a moment when you realize you cannot sleep the way ordinary people sleep. You cannot waste time the way careless people waste time. You cannot live like those who have no calling, because something inside you tells you that you were not created to be ordinary. Waking before dawn is not just a discipline of the body, it is a declaration to God, to life, and to your own purpose that you refuse to live on leftovers, that you refuse to operate on spiritual scraps, that you refuse to let your life be dictated by laziness, distraction, or the gravitational pull of comfort. When you step into that early hour, you step into an atmosphere where the world is silent but heaven is awake, where noise disappears, but truth becomes louder, where excuses die and clarity begins to speak, and you discover that God has always been present, waiting for those who would value him enough to meet him when others are still sleeping. Those early hours of the morning are not empty, they are pregnant with destiny waiting to be birthed. In those quiet moments, your thoughts become clearer, your convictions become firmer, and your purpose becomes louder. The mind is most honest with you before distractions begin, before your phone starts flashing, before people start demanding, before the weight of daily responsibility crowds your spirit. At 4 a.m., you are not competing with voices, demands, notifications, opinions, or confusion. You are face to face with your reality, face to face with your calling, face to face with your weakness, and face to face with the God who has never stopped believing in what he placed inside you. It is in those hours that great ideas are born, spiritual sensitivity sharpens, and courage begins to grow. Many people cry for destiny but refuse discipline. They desire greatness but reject commitment. They want elevation but avoid preparation. Yet greatness never visits the lazy, destiny never rewards indiscipline, and divine breakthroughs do not come to those who only pray when it is convenient. The early hour tests whether you truly want change or whether you simply want to sound spiritual. When you wake at 4 a.m., something begins to happen, not only spiritually, but mentally and emotionally. Your mind starts learning submission. Your emotions begin to learn control. Your body learns obedience. Every time you deny yourself extra sleep, you are training your inner man to dominate your outer man. You are teaching your flesh that it is not the master of your purpose and not the ruler of your decisions. Many people are slaves to feelings. They only move when they feel motivated. They only act when they feel strong. They only pray when they feel spiritual. And they only pursue destiny when emotions are favorable. But waking early builds a spirit that acts beyond feelings, a soul that moves beyond comfort, a discipline that stands even when the body complains. It builds spiritual authority because authority always grows, self-control is practiced. This discipline also breaks laziness and procrastination. There are people who love to dream but never build what they dream. They love to plan but never execute. They love to talk big but never produce results. Their life is always soon or one day, I will, in the future. But the future never arrives because time punishes procrastination. Waking up early kills procrastination because it forces you to face responsibility while everyone else is still hiding from it. It forces you to respect time rather than abuse it. It puts you ahead, spiritually ahead, mentally ahead, emotionally ahead, and sometimes even financially ahead. You feel the difference when you walk into your day already empowered, already prayed up, already clear, already strong, already spiritually charged, while others are still trying to catch up with themselves. But the early hour is not only about discipline, it is about hearing God without interference. Many people complain that they cannot hear direction, that they feel lost, confused, and spiritually disconnected, yet they give God the most distracted time of their day. They rush prayers, squeeze him between activities, give him the last tired moments of their night, and then wonder why revelation feels distant. The early hour is where revelations whisper, where instructions are clearer, where peace sits gently, and where divine strength visits quietly. This is where you begin to receive wisdom about your relationships, clarity about your finances, understanding about your decisions, guidance about your battles, and light for the path you must walk. You begin to see what you previously ignored, recognize what you once tolerated, and understand what you once misunderstood. And when you do this consistently, something supernatural begins to shape your life. Your confidence shifts, your thinking matures, your perception of life elevates. Suddenly you stop thinking like a victim and start thinking like a steward of destiny. You stop reacting emotionally and start responding spiritually. You stop begging God to change things while refusing to change yourself, and instead you become a partner in transformation. Early rising is not magic, it is alignment. It aligns your priorities, aligns your soul, aligns your spirit, aligns your energy, and aligns your life with purpose. You begin to feel your spirit gaining strength, your faith becoming bold, your courage awakening, and your hunger for purpose deepening. This habit also exposes the true desires of your heart. If you can wake up early for money, for entertainment, for travel, for work, or for worldly plans, but you cannot wake early to build your spiritual life, then your values are already exposed. The early hour confronts truth. It reveals what you love most. It separates those who want to impress people from those who want to please God, those who seek attention from those who seek transformation, those who love talking about purpose from those who are truly committed to living it. When you choose to rise when it is hard, when you choose to pray when it is inconvenient, when you choose growth over comfort, heaven begins to trust you differently, because faithfulness in discipline attracts divine trust. And slowly, change begins to show in your character. You become more patient, more intentional, more focused, more spiritually sensitive. Anxiety weakens because prayer has already taken control of the day. Fear loses strength because you entered the day with confidence. Temptations lose their grip because your spirit is awake. Depression finds less room because light has already entered your soul. The things that once controlled you begin to shrink in power because discipline strengthens the spirit, and a strong spirit can carry a heavy destiny. This is why people who discipline themselves to rise early often walk in unusual strength, unusual peace, unusual clarity, and unusual resilience. So when you wake at 4 a.m., don't see it as losing sleep. See it as gaining destiny. Don't see it as punishment. See it as preparation. Don't see it as unnecessary sacrifice. See it as spiritual investment. You're investing in your future, your calling, your faith, your relationship with God, your mental strength, your emotional stability, and your divine assignment. You are stepping into the place where champions are formed, where leaders are refined, where warriors are prepared, and where destiny is shaped. And as you keep doing it, people will start to wonder why your life is changing, why your peace is different, why your confidence is unshaken, why your wisdom sounds deeper, why your spirit feels stronger, and why favor keeps coming your way. They will see results, but they will not know about the secret hours where you met God, disciplined yourself, aligned your soul, and strengthened your inner man. And that is when you will realize that waking at 4 a.m. was never just about time. It was about transforming your life, awakening your purpose, activating your spiritual authority, and stepping boldly into the life heaven always knew you were capable of living. And when you stay consistent in that discipline, you will not only watch what happens to you, you will live in the undeniable evidence that your destiny responds to the hour you choose to honor your calling with passion, sacrifice, faith, and unstoppable determination.